G'day there. I'm driving along in the car, and whilst I've been driving along, I've been thinking about genetically modified foods, and I often have this thought about genetically modified foods, how fucking evil they are. Let's face it, like there's nothing good to be said about genetically modified food. The fact that we have allowed corporations to do such things as tinker with the genetics, right at the deep genetic structure of the DNA of the food that we eat, doing things as evil as crossing fish like salmon with wheat strains so that the wheat is more able to withstand cold, the same as the salmon is able to withstand cold. I mean, you're talking about abominations of nature. Let's face it, like within nature, can a fish fuck a piece of wheat? And I hate to be crude about it, but it does make your blood boil. And sometimes it's worth getting people's attention with such language, because what is going on here? How did in the first place, why did people think that's morally okay to go start doing such things as tinkering with the genetic structure of foods? And for two, how do governments let them get it through? And for three, why have we as a people allowed our governments to do such things? And for four, why are we buying them? In America and many parts of the world, much of Australia and that sort of thing, the laws for labelling GMO foods is non-existent or virtually non-existent. They can put any GMO ingredients into any food and they don't have to label it. We as a people have the right to know. These things are highly dangerous. Early tests that they're doing on rats are showing that rats fed all of their life on genetically modified corn or GMO soy products are having tumours the size of their head all over their body. The babies of such rats that are eating these foods are born half the birth weight of normal rats. Now, I know they're rat studies, they're not human studies, but I tell you what, this is not promising science that you can draw a conclusion for human people. I mean, it shows them at the very least to be highly dangerous and unpredictable with their results. Me personally, I don't think that we should be allowing this sort of things to happen, and I believe that it's highly criminal that corporations have pushed these products. Corporations such as Monsanto have pushed these products onto the people for their own profit. It's not for the benefit of the human population. It's often marketed as a solution for global hunger, etc. But studies are actually showing that genetically modified foods are underperforming by 85% of regular crops. Now, under 85%. In fact, even organic crops are performing better than genetically modified stock crops. So they're not feeding the world. They're not something that is producing bumper harvests, etc. for the world's population. We need to be looking at this sort of stuff. The fact that they're not being labelled into what food products they're in, to me is the highest concern of all. How would you know? How do you know what's going into your kids' foods? The worst foods of all too happen to be the processed foods on the supermarket shelf. Well, g'day again. The battery ran out on the phone, and this is the next day. I'm continuing the conversation, just picking up where I left off. So where we're at to is we're saying that the vast majority of supermarket packaged foods on the shelves these days are containing GMO ingredients. And the reason for that is because almost all soy and corn out in the market today, 90% of soy and corn and soy and corn products are GMO. They're genetically modified soy or genetically modified corn. The next most commonly genetically modified food is canola. So with that in mind, we'll look at another statistic that over 70% of foods on the supermarket shelves these days contain either soy or corn products. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've got corn or soy straight by itself, but you're talking about things like corn flours, you're talking about soy flours, lecithins, high fructose corn syrup, miso, tamari, You talk about things such as tofu, bean curd, tofu and that sort of things. So, with a plethora of hundreds of different derivatives that you get from soy and corn, you've got bugger all chance of picking something up from the supermarket shelf these days that doesn't have either one or the other. Now, that's not to say they don't contain other genetically modified ingredients, but just corn or soy, there's a 70% chance you pick it up from the supermarket shelf. It's going to have one or the other in those, and of those, 90% of soy and corn is going to be genetically modified. I would assume, don't know this for sure, but I would assume that anything that's going to go into a processed product would most likely be almost 100% genetically modified to begin with. It'd be the more rubbish stock. You're not going to use organic produce for processed foods, right? So, if you're buying stuff from a packet from the supermarket, you're really looking at eating Frankenstein foods, and you're dicing with your life and your children's lives. What do we do about such things? I mean, well, actually, before we go and look at what we do about it, let's look further. With the processing of food these days, you've got artificial flavourings, artificial colourings, artificial preservatives. ADHD is just skyrocketing because of these products. You're getting things like Alzheimer's that, look, I can't be sure about this, but it's causing ADHD and other neurological disorders, destroying nerve cells. Chances are, come on, let's have a look at it. Alzheimer's is probably more than likely a result of such chemicals. You're looking at MSG, aspartame, high fructose corn syrups. You're looking at just a plethora of different ingredients that go into packaged foods these days. It's almost impossible to pick up a packaged food and find something that doesn't have crap in it. Like I remember going through one time with my daughters trying to find something healthy and yummy that they could eat from the supermarket because they really wanted to eat something treaty that night for dessert, and I wanted to oblige them, and I went looking through the supermarket shelves and read the labels, and I've become a bit more accustomed to how to read the labels and what I'm looking for. There's almost nothing on the supermarket shelves that doesn't contain nasty, evil ingredients. Even things like flavour or natural flavourings, they can be disguised names for MSG. Same as calcium caseinate, yeast extract, anything to do with protein at all, soy protein, you can say they're all MSG, like extractions from that natural product. They're all glutamates. So my point about that is if it's from the supermarket shelf in a packet, chances are you're looking at something that's not good for you. So what do we do about it? Well, it's getting harder and harder. Like there's a lot of, I hear there's, things like tomatoes that are genetically modified these days. You're talking about some fruits, pawpaws, that sort of stuff. So it's harder and harder to distinguish, particularly without labelling laws. If you're not labelling, you've got no idea. So it's a difficult one, Not everyone can afford to buy organic, and we wish that the world would hurry up and get around to switching over to organic, considering that organic is producing these days just as well as any other crop, when well managed with organic systems. So, hurry up and catch up. But, if you can find farmers markets, talk to the farmers, individually, see what they do. Do they spray their crops? Do they use genetically modified stock? Do they do organic? All that sort of stuff. That's a great way of doing things. You can shop at smaller outlets, smaller shops, family-owned shops, that sort of thing, because you're not supporting the multinational corporatocracy conglomerates that are pushing such things as GMO and high amount of pesticides and all those sorts of things. The more we shop smaller, the more we're voting with our dollar and showing our protest and encouraging these multinational corporations to push away from all the nasty practices they're doing. There's nothing that is stronger than the vote of your dollar. There's nothing that corporations listen to more than where you spend your dollar. And it is very powerful. I mean, you vote 3 times a day with your teeth, you know, with your dollar. You know, what you put into your mouth is probably one of the largest industries in the world, the food industry. You know, and how you direct that spending is very powerful, particularly if you talk to friends, neighbours, colleagues, and have some sort of influence over them, and you know, people start to gradually change and shift away, or you know, let's hope even not gradually, rapidly, you know. So yeah, do what you can. Start where you are. Do something about yourself, you know, to have an influence on the world as well. You know, I know that voting doesn't really make a lot of difference these days. You know, casting your vote, going along to election, no matter which party you're voting for in America, for instance, it seems to be that they always put somebody from the top echelons of Monsanto into the key positions of the FDA or the Department of Agriculture. It doesn't matter which party you vote for. Sooner or later, within, you know, several months, they've got somebody from one of those huge evil corporations dictating policy and what's right and wrong and how to do things within America. You know, in the best interests of Monsanto, Syngenta, you know, all these companies that are doing the wrong thing by you and your health. So, you know, I would rely more on the vote of your dollar than the vote that you actually vote in an election. You know. Yeah. So that's all for today. And I hope you got something out of today. Please leave your thoughts, comments, criticisms down below. And I look forward to catching you in the next video. Take care.